and welcome back to another Talking Wolves podcast. Another 2 games to discuss following another busy week for Wolverhampton Wanderers. We're hoping that before the game against Crystal Palace, it may have been a slightly more positive podcast, but we'll discuss the action nonetheless. My name is Dave. Alongside me today is Mr. Jordan Russell. Jord, good to have you back on, mate. These weeks seem to be going quicker. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I suppose with the way the football's going, the quicker the season's done, the better, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain about it getting to the end of May, mate. I can't lie. It just feels very from a footballing perspective as well, it just feels a little bit tiresome and a little bit tedious, I guess, that we keep having to come on here and, again, talk about defeats, and it just, it's miserable, really, let's be honest with you. So, being a Wolves fan right now. So, I guess thank you for everyone sticking with us. Thank you for everyone that keeps listening and tuning in. It's a tough slog, especially on a Sunday night, to come on here and record, really, after, again, another deflating defeat today against Crystal Palace.
Yeah, I think that it really deflating, that result. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. You've been up to much this week, though, Jordan, than the football?
No, not really. People who listen to this pod often will know. Yeah, I played golf yesterday. I played in a golf comp, which was nice because it's been the weather's obviously been that shit. Yeah, so it was nice actually to get out and play because I've not played since I've been back from America. So no, it was good to get out and about, really, on that sort of sense. And other than that, just pottering around, just keeping busy and stuff, really. So all good.
Yeah, no, good. Yeah, it was a busy week as well. Obviously, Wolves facing off against Arsenal on Wednesday. And a game under the lights at Molineux, which I don't think many people were looking forward to, if I'm completely honest. But Wolves did surprise us. Despite going 2-0 down, they fought back to get in the end, which seemed to be a positive result as well. Rob Edwards tried something a little bit different for this one from the start, really. Dropped Tolu completely. Adam Armstrong was that sort of lone striker. And really, we had to wait till Angel Gomez had picked up a knock. His back apparently had locked up and he came off for Tolu to come on. But your initial thoughts on that, because you would have assumed if there was going to be one striker that started, it probably would have been Tolu to have the hold up and so on. But obviously, maybe he went into that one thinking, well, let's try and get him behind and using the pace of Adam Armstrong.
Yeah, I think he got it wrong from the start, to be honest with you. I think actually Angel Gomez going off injured actually helped us in that game because we felt so passive in that first half. And I mean, look, you can caveat that with who a lot of people might say are the best team in Europe right now. We just didn't have any joy in that first half. But actually, I think Tolu, and again, he's got his pelters today. And again, we'll talk about the Palace game shortly. But actually, when he come on, I thought he made a right handful of himself. I thought he was a nuisance.
Yeah,
I thought he really preoccupied Saliba and Gabriel. In the first half, he pinned Saliba twice and managed to sort of draw fouls off him and break up the play a little bit. And I understand sort of the rationale behind sort of maybe what Rob was thinking in terms of, well, we're going to have we're going to be up against it. Let's sort of pack out the midfield a little bit more. And Adam Armstrong's been effectively like a bit of a false 9, playing a little bit of a 10 role, I guess. Since we've had him, so I think it was just one of those things of let's pack the midfield up and let's try and stop Arsenal playing. But we just had nothing. The ball wasn't sticking. It kept coming back and back and back. And like I say, I think it was a bit of a blessing in disguise for Rob that Angel Gomez went off with an injury, because I think actually we looked a lot better, more cohesive as a unit when Tolu went on the pitch.
Yeah, I think the thing with Tolu as well, and again, we'll touch on him and his performance against Palace a little bit more shortly, but I know he scored bags of goals, scored loads of goals in the Belgian league, which we know is completely different level to the Premier League, and it'll be very interesting if he were to stay next season. What level, what amount of goals he can get. But I think currently for me, he's someone that is a nuisance. He'll drag defenders, he'll pin defenders. But we need somebody closer to him. I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before. You need players closer to him, because all it'll take is for him to win the flick on, the ball to bounce off him or a preoccupied defender. And then you get someone with a bit of pace like Mane or Adam Armstrong way closer to the action. There's a chance that Wall's going to break and have more opportunities that way. And for whatever reason, when we're punting the ball up to Tolu, there's no Wolves players within 15, 20 yards of him. I think we did okay with it against Arsenal, but there were a number of games, the Palace game in particular, but there have been other games over the last few weeks where I've noticed that. I'm thinking, if you want to play hoofball or route one up to Tolu, that's fine. But when he knocks it down, you need someone next to him that's actually going to pick up the ball and maybe continue to gain a space up the pitch. And that's how I thought we'd play from the start. And I think it was just far too one-dimensional to begin with against Arsenal. And the goal as well, I think that obviously Declan Rice into Saka, I think was the combination, and just seemed a little bit too easy for that to go into. And really the thing that sparked a little bit of excitement, Jord, was that tackle by Mosquera on Martinelli, loose ball, he goes flying in. And I think, we love him and we hate him, just on Mosquera, but there's little moments like that sometimes just will give you that little bit of boost and try and get the fans and even the other players on your team on side as well.
Yeah, he's. I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago on this podcast. I think he's got all the attributes to be a top level defender for me, like athleticism, pace, tenacity. Doesn't shy away from a tackle or a header. He goes flying in, and then I do feel like, me as a Wolves fan, he lets himself down a little bit with the theatrics and the shithousery and everything. And some Wolves fans love that. Like, I think if and I get it, but like for me, like I feel like that sort of shithousery and all that side of the game really only sort of is worth its weight in gold when you're winning football games and you're part of a successful football team. I think the way that he's doing it right now. Again, this isn't me having a dig on his performance, because I thought he played quite well against Arsenal. I thought he played quite well again today against Crystal Palace. But I just think it's not great when you look at where we are in the league. You're part of a losing team, a losing football club, a losing culture, and then you're acting like a bit of a class clown on the pitch. Like, other teams and rivals aren't like laughing with you; they're laughing at you.
Yeah.
Ultimately, and that's where, I feel like it's just, for me, if I was him or I was Rob Edwards, I'd have a quiet word in his ear and say, like, mate, stick to the football for now. Like, if we were winning football games, completely different, but just stick to the football, please. Because, yeah, like, he's got no reason to be acting like that when you're sitting on 10 points as it is now.
Yeah. We ended the second half in an okay manner. I think it was really important in that game as well to get into half time. I suppose if you're going behind, you make sure it's only by one goal, but it just felt like once again we were giving other teams that sort of head start, which we have done so often this season. But the second half, Jord, I actually felt against Arsenal we had quite a lot of momentum. We started off quite well, and their second goal actually was almost against the run of play a little bit, because I think the way that we held the ball, we had the momentum. It was a close offside. I think they made the right decision in the end. I think at that point, there were many, many people leaving the stadium, which you would think when you're 2-0 down against the league leaders, there's probably little to no chance of Wolves mounting any sort of comeback. But we did. And Hugo Bueno, an absolute beauty of a goal. And I think sort of the result and the sort of what happened in the end sort of overshadow how quality this finish was. And it's not the first time Hugo's tried anything like this. A couple of times cutting off the left-hand side on his right foot. I think I picked out the West Ham game, which we won 3-0. He did it. The Everton game, he came so close to scoring what could have been the winning goal, which was tipped over the bar against Pickford. But this time it's on the opposite side, so it's on his stronger foot. And it's a gorgeous finish to loop it over David Raya to get us back in the game.
Yeah, no, he took it well. And I think playing devil's advocate, I'd be a little bit disappointed if I was an Arsenal fan, because I think it wasn't like
a little bit too far of his line.
I don't think it was top bins. It wasn't like completely, top stanchion or right in the corner. So, but it was, don't get me wrong, it was a brilliant strike from Bueno. And I think once we got that goal and got the foot back in the game, you could just sort of sense it. Like, Arsenal just shit themselves, to be honest with you. And I've had this conversation a few times this week with people. Like, they were as good as Arsenal are as a football team, as good as the squad they've got. I'd probably say they've got the best squad in the Premier League, arguably in Europe in terms of depth. I don't think they'll win anything meaningful under Mikel Arteta, because I just think he's just negative. I think he's just defensive. Like, the only reason we got back into that game, even after Bueno's effort, was they beat themselves, Arsenal, in terms of, like, if that was, put it like 2-0 up, Liverpool team of a few years ago under Klopp, or even a Pep Guardiola Man City team, they'd go and stick 3-4-5 past the worst team in the league, and they'd just kill the game completely. And I think, I will give us a credit because we dug in and we held on in terms of, we got ourselves back in the game. It was great to see Tomadozi get the goal and even get credited with it, because they did put it down as an own goal at one point, and I was like, oh, don't do that to him. But for me, a lot of that on Wednesday night was Arsenal chucking it, then us playing well. So even, and we know we haven't got that much quality in the final third. It's been apparent all season. We didn't really. I don't think we really had them under the pump. I don't think we really created or carved anything. Ultimately, it's a bit of a rip between Raya and Gabriel, and like I said, Adozi's took it really well. To be honest with you, he's kept composure, and his technique was on point to keep it on target. And look, it's great scenes. It's been a real bleak season, and again, that's just how bad the season has been. That we're like waxing lyrical and having like that. We're talking about limbs for a point at home against Arsenal, and I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer, but it just showed, like a few years ago we were beating Arsenal, we're beating Man City, we're beating Liverpool, beating Man United, Chelsea's like regularly, like, but that's how bad our season's been this year, that we're effectively celebrating Arsenal choking it, or at least potentially choking it. It's mad, it's crazy, the drop off.
Yeah, I think because the positive moments for us have been so few and far between this season. I think, to be fair, regardless of our position in the table, if you're coming up against top of the league and you're 2-0 down and you come back to 2-2, especially the late goal that we did, I think there would still be a level of reaction and excitement. Obviously on social media it's blown up in certain situations because of what happened during the game and because of Arsenal's sort of reputation across the nation at this point. But yeah, it was still a good moment, and there was an Arsenal fan in particular that I saw sort of bottom left of their sort of away end by the South Bank, and he was giving it massive all game. And I was watching, every time I look towards the away end, he was staring, he was chanting and screaming at the Wolves fans. I'm like, just watch the game, man. Just watch the game. And it was absolutely brilliant because after we scored the second, he just fixated on the pitch and didn't look at the Wolves fans at all. Full time whistle went, he'd straight out as well. So, life came at him very, very fast. But you mentioned Tomadozi there, though, Jord, as well. Like, this is, I know Rob Edwards has had his faults. He's got his faults. The season in general has been atrocious, but one thing you can't fault him is giving opportunities to players like this. Obviously, Matheus Mane had a little bit of exposure to first-team football, but not to the level that we've seen under Rob Edwards. And all of a sudden, we've got Wolves fans saying we've got a 30, 40, 50 million pound player. Tomadozi gets an opportunity and, repays the faith in him by scoring that late equaliser. Now, I don't think he covered himself in glory for the first couple of moments of coming onto the pitch, because I don't know whether he was just a little bit too overexcited or just didn't quite know what to do or where he was, because there were a few stray passes and a few moments. But ultimately for that goal, right place, right time, and even the shot, there's so many players that could have been leaning back and that could have gone over the bar, but he just fires it towards goal, beats Raya, and just too much, power on the shot for anybody to stop. And, that's a massive moment for a player of that age and something that he's obviously going to remember for the rest of his career as well.
Yeah, no, look, his technique was brilliant. He took it really, really, really well. Like I say, he could have quite easily ended up over the top of the South Bank roof, to be fair. And there's been plenty of players who would do that in a Wolves shirt, past and present. So, yeah, look, it was brilliant technique. He kept it on target. I'm really happy for that. He's gone and done that, to be honest with you. And yeah, like I say, for all of Rob's faults within the fan base at the moment, he's given youth a chance. I don't think he's got much of a choice, to be honest with you, but he's given youth a chance. You would argue that's probably what some fans want to see, really, knowing that we are a championship side in waiting coming up to next year. So actually start blooding in and playing some of these players that may or may not, but probably will be part of a championship squad, let's be honest with you, that we're going to need to rely on next season. So, yeah, look, again, fair play to Tomadozi for the finish. And like I say, it's a good point. Whether we're second in the league or 20th in the league, it's a good point against Arsenal, who are, like I say, top of the league at the time of recording. But yeah, it just, for me, just almost like a bittersweet of reality that, this is really what we're getting overexcited about. shows
Yeah.
how far we've sort of dipped in the last couple of years for me.
What did you think of Rob's post-match comments as well? Jord's on Sky that he said he wanted a little bit more backing from the fans. I think obviously there were chants of fucking up, get into him throughout the first half, which is a norm when the sort of fans feel the work rate levels probably aren't where they need to be. Jackson Chichua cheered off the pitch when he was substituted off, and yeah, there was just a sly comment towards the fans from Rob Edwards. What was your take on that?
I mean, look, I don't mind it. Like, I don't mind it. Like, I think, I think it's sort of been blown a little bit out of proportion. I don't think it was meant in a way that sort of some people have taken it. For me, I'm really not a fan of this jeering your own players and like sarcastically applauding them off and whatever, because that's not going to do anything for anyone's confidence. And yeah, look, Jackson Stewart, we've had conversations about this all season, really. Like, I think he's quite limited in what he can offer going forward. Like, defensively, I think he's okay. Like, I do think he's okay defensively. I do think he's quite limited. And, just sort of sarcastically applauding him coming off the pitch, I don't like it. I don't buy it. And I think that's sort of what Rob's getting at, to be honest with you. I think it's like, well, come on, like, the cards we're playing with here, like, And I think there's like, again, I've seen it today, like almost like discourse for like Rodrigo Gomez should be playing ahead of Jackson Chichua, and I think it's because he's a bit of a fan's favourite, Rodrigo Gomez, and again, I like Rodrigo Gomez. I don't necessarily think the problem with him. I don't necessarily think he's like a defender. I don't necessarily think he's a winger. Like, he falls in that little category, and I think because he works his bollocks off and he runs a lot and he's pacey and he's infectious, I think fans really rate him. Technically, do I think he's an infinitely better footballer than Jackson Chua? Not infinitely, no. Like, for me, I would play Rodrigo Gomez. I think he offers more going forward, 100%. But I think that's where some of these sarcastic clamours are as well. Like, I think they think Rodrigo Gomez should be one of the first names on the team sheet week in, week out. And again, there's not a lot of quality, so maybe he should be, but I just don't like all this sarcastic cheering. Huang gets it as well, and yeah, I think it's just a fan base. We've got every right to be angry. We've got every right to be frustrated at certain things that are going on with this football club. For me, leave the players on the pitch alone, because we know they're not good enough collectively.
Sure, they are. The players that you mentioned then have never disrespected the fan base and this football club
Not at all.
either.
Not
So
at all.
Minetti, I've mentioned this before to you, but I think Minetti got a lot of stick, and some of the comments about when he was leaving were vile. Like, you can think of football players bad, and you can sort of be happy in a way that they've moved on. But the some of the comments, I was there like, he's never done anything but work quite hard for this football club. Like, you've got the Cunhas that made comments on social media. You've got the Mateus Nunez's who skipped training to force a move away. Those sort of players, fair enough. But these players are representing the football club currently, and regardless of how bad or how good they've been on the pitch, I think you leave that. If you don't want to applaud a player for his performance, don't applaud, but don't jeer, don't boo, don't sarcastically cheer the substitution. Yeah, I've said that before, and I'm not a fan of that. But the way that there was some comment, I mean, I did a video on this and Rob Edwards' comments anyway, but the way that there was some comments on social media on Wednesday night, I was like, flipping heck, what is he said here? But yeah, when I watched it back, I was like, right, okay, I think he has sort of got a point in a way. Managers have said it before. I remember Bruno Lage, we beat Watford 4-0, and he moaned about the fans, fans in that game. And he said, I can't believe, the fans aren't backing us more and things like that. So it's just what it is. And unfortunately, Jord, the other controversy from Wednesday night was the two streamers that were spotted at Wolves as well. So obviously we've had a little bit more detail on that as well. But for those who aren't aware, there were two streamers that were at Molineux. I've never heard of them. I don't know if you had beforehand, Jord, but they got quite a bit of following, predominantly in America. They were at Molineux with Wolves gear, tracksuits and tops on, and when Arsenal scored, they sort of lifted the Wolves top up to reveal an Arsenal shirt right in the, I think it was in the Billy Wright, I think.
Yeah, it looked like right in there. Yeah.
So yeah, that obviously has had a little bit of stick. There's been no official response from the club. But we have spoke to certain people about that. But Jord, originally, before we sort of know what we know now, what was your thoughts and take on that?
Just really poor. Again, really, really poor. You got a team that are struggling massively. It's sleeting, it's cold. There's wind chill of like -3, -4. There's about 25,000 ish, I would say, probably in that ground who have actually still turned up to go and watch that team. Fair play to those. I didn't go. I'm not going at the minute because, again, that makes me fickle. Call me fickle. You got people in the ground who stand in ponchos, freezing their arse off, and then you've got two streamers who have been invited by the club, or again, we know a little bit more now. Asked if they could come and then been invited into the club. The club have kitted them out head to toe, joggers, coats, shirts, free. I'd imagine all for the exposure, but free. They've probably gone into the Billy Wright present suite. They've had 3-course meal. They've had unlimited alcohol, unlimited soft drinks. They're in the warm, and then they're filming themselves quite openly before the game even started. And again, I know you'll get on to sort of what the club's response was to you in the conversations you've had. They said before the game started, outside the Billy Wright statue, effectively, they're there to troll. They've got their Arsenal tops on. Blah, blah, blah. They're doing everything for clickbait and exposure. So the club at that point should really know exactly what's going on and not let them in. And there's people associated with the club that were in and around those two streamers were also having that conversation outside the ground, for one. They're on camera. And again, they might say they didn't know anything about it. They're on camera for that. Then, obviously, the goal goes in. They're lifting their Arsenal shirt up. They're causing havoc with people in the family enclosure. Good job it went in the fucking South Bank because they've got the Reds kicked in. Right. But again, so that's happened within 5 minutes. Saka scored. So you've seen that happen. Again, the club quite easily could go and take them out. And again, I know you're going to talk about the club's response to that. Fuck. Oh, they're going to say, oh, we got kicked out. Just get fucking out. Get them out. Just get them out at that point, right? I just think it's distasteful. I think it's bang out of order. I think it's naive at best from the football club and individuals who are associated with it. When you've got, again, the best part of 300-400 people, if not more, in that ground move stand, in the sleet, no roof, in a fucking temporary stand that's just not fit for purpose, freezing their arse off, and you've got these two fucking American streamers who are just taking the piss out of us, quite literally. And again, I know I've swore a lot there, so I apologise, but that's how I feel about it. Taking the piss out of us as a football club again.
Yeah, it felt like, in terms of timing, like we should not be rolling the red carpet out for anybody, in the situation. But as people may or may not have seen, obviously on Wednesday night, Thursday morning, it kicked off a little bit. The club had a shoe came to a few people, including myself, to sort of clarify their situation, their position on it. And for people that want to know, basically, I think is it Marlon, the one streamer? I can't, something Ronaldo, the other lad, isn't it? And basically, their agent or manager said, "Well, these guys are in the UK. They'd be really interested in coming to Wolves match." Obviously, Wolves did a little bit of digging on them. Obviously, saw they were quite big in terms of profile. Went back and forth. I don't know the exact details of conversations and so on. And Wolves were like, "Well, what do you want?" And they said, "Well, we can, watch the game as long as you get good Wi-Fi, so we can, stream the reactions. That's fine." So Wolves did that. The streamers and the agents then asked if they could have some merchandise, which Wolves said, "Yeah, fine, okay." Which Wolves gave them on stream. At no point, obviously, were Wolves aware of what was going to happen, because that wouldn't have happened. And then from Wolves' point of view, is if they were to kick them out after that first, Wolves knew straight away what had happened. But if they were to kick them out, it would almost have given them what they wanted, to be kicked out on stream, to be shown. I agree with you, Jord. I don't care. I would rather them have been kicked out, because from a Wolves point of view, I think Wolves fan, I don't think it would have blown up as much as it had done. I think Wolves fans are like, "Oh, fair enough, they've kicked him out." I think the fact that they stayed in the ground probably made things worse a little bit. But I do know the individuals from Wolves have, who agreed to it originally, have gone back to said agents of managers of these streamers and said, "Look, you are taking the piss. Like, you have taken the piss, and it's really that is not on. And of course, on Thursday there were some very awkward and difficult conversations at the club because they know they've held their hands up, although not publicly, but they've held their hands up internally at the club, and they know they're completely cocked up on that. So I would assume they will do a hell of a lot more homework, and they have owned up to that as being as an error internally at the football club, but definitely not a nice look, and especially when it was a semi-positive night at Molineux on Wednesday, to have something like that happen as well put a little bit of a taint on the result, unfortunately. But let's move on, Jord, to Sunday afternoon's game. Unfortunately, away at Selhurst Park, a ground that we have both done before. I've done it on a Sunday as well. I mentioned this last week. I'm so glad that I didn't make the trip to Selhurst Park today. But it finished Crystal Palace 1, Wolves 0. Again, a lot to unpack from this game as well, Jord. In terms of starting lineup, pretty much what we expected. It was that Tolu coming in for Angel Gomez from the start, and that's the team I think I accepted. Maybe Jackson out and Rodrigo in, sort of based on the discussion that we just had, but I think also it almost, Rob Edwards did this at Middlesbrough, backing certain of his players. Like Morgan Whittaker was the one that he backed, he played, he kicked on, and it almost feels to me that, although he's not said it publicly, he's almost doing the same possibly with Jackson Chichura a little bit. However, away from home, you're more than likely going to have less possession than Crystal Palace. You have got a better defender in Jackson Chichura, so you will play him. If you know you're going to be playing fairly defensive, you play him.
Yeah, I had no qualms about the starting 11 after the Arsenal game. I think João Gomez must be carrying some sort of knock. I think he's having problems with his hip, and there's naturally if he was fitted, probably one of the first names on the team sheet, but he's obviously carrying something at the moment. So there's no complaints to me really with that starting 11. I thought it was justified as well. I know there's been a lot of negative connotations and negative feedback after we know what happened with the result and stuff against Rob and certain people in the team, but I'll be honest with you, I thought that first half was, I know we missed the penalty, but that first half away from home in the Premier League was as good as you're going to get out of this group of players. To be honest with you, I thought we played really well. I thought Selhurst Park is very tricky to go to. I know, granted, they've got some injuries at the moment. Oliver Glasner's self-destructing himself as well, which again was adding to all that in terms of that. If we started off quickly, we could get a foothold in the game, and we managed to do that. I thought Andre and Bellegarde, especially in that first half, were absolutely brilliant. I thought we'd bossed the midfield, thought we'd dominated the midfield, and more than justified in his starting 11 for me. I thought it was balanced. I thought we did well, again, especially in that first half. And, the penalty is going to be a big topic of conversation for a lot of people on and off this podcast. But, if you go and stick that penalty away, 1-0 up away from home, we were well worth going into half time with a lead, I thought, and could have been a couple.
Yeah, I think that penalty as well. I think that goes in. You go half time 1-0. You've got a bit of a bounce in your step. I full belief that we probably go on to well, we will get something out of the game, but I believe that we probably would have gone on to win that game. And this has been the issue all season, Jord. These minor, small margins, and typically 99% of the time these things have gone against Wolves. But today it's two individual incidents that have cost Wolves today from getting at least a point. I think with 11 men on that pitch today, we probably still go on to pick up a point. But the penalty, Jord, Stonewall for a start. I think there were a few question marks over whether it should have been a red card, but I think with the double jeopardy rule and stuff, I think the referee probably got the right decision there. But Tolu steps up, and I don't know whether it's just because Wolves have been so poor this season in general. I wasn't ever confident in him stepping up. But saying that, I think anybody could have stepped up for that penalty, and I probably wouldn't have been confident. And it's easy for us to say in hindsight now, but you look at the penalty records of some of the other Wolves players on that pitch. Ladislav Krejci, penalty taker in his previous clubs. I think he scored 13 or 15 or 16 penalties in his career. Adam Armstrong scored 25 penalties throughout his career. Tolu now, including this one, has missed his last 5. I know you put that in our chat. Again, some people may pin this on Rob Edwards. I think he's the easy target at the moment. But when you've got a player that sort of record, these clubs have analysts, they've got coaches, they're going to be aware of these records. Why is somebody who is a penalty specialist, let's say, like Ladislav Krejci, like Adam Armstrong, who have taken penalties at their previous clubs, not stepping up for this penalty? Because the quality of the penalty that we saw from Tolu is on par with the quality of penalty that we saw from Jorgen Strand Larsen earlier on this season. And it's just not good enough. Far too easy for Dean Henderson to read and far too easy for him to save. And ultimately, that cost us at least a point today.
Yeah, I think take the records out of it, right? So I think, Tolu has come to this football club for a big fee, a big sum of money. He was a record goal scorer in the previous 2 seasons, again, in the Belgian league, which, again, we say doesn't necessarily translate or transcend into English football. But, again, when we signed him for the money, I did sort of defend the fact that actually that Belgian league now is a lot better than what it was 3-4 years ago. You got USG in Champions League, you got Genk doing stuff in Europe as well, right? So you got some, and Club Brugge as well. So you've actually got some good Belgian sides now. So for him to have that record speaks volumes for one. And then again, so I would say there's probably people at Wolves, and maybe I'm being naive here, but maybe don't know he missed his previous 4 penalties, right, in his career. Who knows that, right? We won't know that. I'll get that insight. As someone who we spent the best part of 24 million quid on, as my centre forward, if we win a penalty, I think my centre forward should be demanding to get the ball and say, I want to score this. Like, I back myself to score this. And that may or may not have happened, right? The penalty itself, I just think when you have those sort of ambled, few step run ups, side-footed efforts, when you miss, you look like a tit, and he looks like a tit. And again, I was watching it at home with the dog, and no one else in the house, and he put the ball down on the spot, and I don't know why I did it. I turned to my dog and went, "He's missing this." I've got no idea why I said it. I don't even know. I can't even explain why it's it. I just knew. You could just tell.
He's like, "Yeah, mate, I think so as well."
Yeah. He's probably thinking, "Yeah, mate, I've watched them all fucking season like you. I know what's going to happen." But especially with someone like Dean Henderson, who's got history of being a good penalty shot stopper. I mean, he saved a fair few against us. We're going back to the Forest game in the Carabao Cup quarter-final, semi-final, quarter-final, quarters, where he did that against us as well. Again, for me, I said this when Strand Larsen missed his penalty. I just don't understand why, when you're down there, you looks out and you ain't got that much confidence, stick the ball on the spot, turn around, and just fucking lamp it down the middle. Just lamp it. Like the goalie's got to take a brave decision to stand still as a keeper off a penalty shootout, because it's in any corner, it's a goal. Just smash it. Smash it. I would much rather. Again, this sounds ridiculous because he still wouldn't score it, but I'd much rather he tries to smash the granny out of it and it goes into Rosed. Don't do that. And then put your hands on your hips and just like, oh, I've missed. Like, just don't do that. It's just a bad look. It's a real bad look. And for me, it's just not that difficult. It's not that hard to comprehend for me that as a professional footballer, just put the ball on the spot and just fucking lever it. Just hit it.
If you're trying to hit it low and place it, you put it right in the fucking corner though as well. And that was, not right in the corner.
You could read it. You could read it.
Yeah.
I'm not a professional goalie, but I could tell you from his run up where he's putting it. It was just so like closed off his run. It was just, it's just too. It's just not good enough, to be honest. It's just not. It's poor.
You need to send the club a video of your penalty from the creators.
I think someone at the club's got it because it was their team we did it against.
Yeah, we shouldn't have. That was literally it. Smashed it as hard as you can.
That's only because he wound me up, Dave. But we won't get into that.
Very true. Yeah, and then, I mean, what I will touch on, because it's just Wolves have just posted about it just before we started as well. Regardless of whether you like or dislike a player or whether they score or miss a penalty, the racial abuse of any footballer in world football, but especially as we're talking on a Wolves podcast, a Wolverhampton Wanderers player, it's absolutely disgusting that there are people out there that think it's okay to racially abuse someone for what has happened on a football pitch. And that's what has happened today with Tolu. I'd assume there'll be more, but he's obviously received messages. Wolves have put those messages said messages out there. I don't really want to repeat what was said because it's disgusting. Whether these people are Wolves fans, I don't know. Whether these are betters, which I assume are, because they always seem to be, names that aren't necessarily from in and around this nation. I don't know if it's people that put money on him to score or Wolves to score. It's absolutely disgusting. So, regardless of what happened on the football pitch today, obviously everybody's with Tolu after today as well. But the second half, Jord, you could tell that the momentum had gone. I think that penalty just killed Wolves, really. Really slow, invited way more pressure. And obviously the turning point then was the red card for Krejci. I think that originally, I think the first booking was a little bit soft. For me, I know people have argued it, I think the second booking's a booking. It just has it in. If a Palace player did that, and then look, I know they got away with a lot. Will Hughes, you could argue, should have been sent off. People will argue that Adam Morton could have got a red card. But for me, if you know you're on a booking, and I think you need to be maybe a little bit streetwise against that referee. Same referee that gave the 2 reds against Everton. He's quite fresh to the Premier League. He's going to be sticking to the rule book as close as he can. A lot of Wolves fans are saying common sense should come into it, but with him being a new referee, if a player kicks the ball away to delay a restart or after the referee's blown a whistle, a brand new, fresh-faced referee is going to give you a caution. And unfortunately for Ladislav Krejci, he's caught the wrong referee on the wrong day.
Yeah, I thought it was extremely harsh during the game. I thought it was just a bit pedantic by the referee. Yeah. I thought the referee was just looking to send someone off. I just felt like he was looking for, he was, again, like say, he's a fresh. I think he was looking just to play everything by the book. And I think Will Hughes got lucky in the first half. I do actually, again, though, when he showed the replay, I actually think he got his toe on the ball for and Mosquera made a meal of it. I think if Mosquera didn't make a meal of it, he might have actually got a second yellow for the challenge, but it sort of theatrics took away from actually the challenge itself. Now, sort of watching it back a few times, because I've done that before I come on the podcast, I actually think Krejci knew what he was doing. I'm with you on it. And again, when I watched in real time, I thought, I just thought it was taking the piss a little bit by the ref, to be honest with you. But I actually watched it about 4 times back now. I think you can quite clearly hear the whistle, and I think you can quite clearly see and tell that Krejci's kicked the ball. He's made it look as natural as he possibly could. But
he would have seen the line as well. He stood right next to the linesman. He would have seen the linesman flag as well.
Yeah, I think he knows what he's doing. Only he would be able to give you a truthful answer, and he might say, "I didn't hear the whistle." I mean. Again, I don't know. I just think when it happened in real time, I was pissed off because I was like, I just thought that's the ref ruined the game here, and it's not even kicked the ball away. But unfortunately, I watched it back a couple of times now, and I think he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, unfortunately, with the inconsistencies of football in the Premier League and referees in general, Arsenal would have probably lost a couple of players on Wednesday if they were sticking to those rules, the way that they were delaying restarts. This is the difference. So we had, I think, Paul Tierney was the referee Wednesday. Such an experienced head, but just allowed Arsenal to run away with this sort of ability to sort of run down the clock and things without putting a lid on things, where you've got a new fresh-faced referee, and I don't know whether it is that he's just trying to make an impression or whatnot, where he's almost got to, I don't think he minded the paperwork because everything that was sort of borderline booking was a booking. He was getting his card out every single time. I don't know the exact numbers, but, I can remember 4, 5, 6 bookings at a minimum throughout that game. So, like I said, I think you've caught another referee that officiates that game today. He probably doesn't. He might not even receive a booking, Jord, because, like I said, the first one I think was a bit borderline anyway. But that ultimately is what cost us. Rob had to change the team. We had to sit a lot deeper, so we were even more negative than before. And all it was going to take was one lapse of concentration, and that's what it was. I think Mascara or probably João Gomez needs to get a lot closer to Gesson. And, he's got a little bit of time, and he's not missing those sort of chances. Just that little bit of free space, and you put it into the back of the net.
Yeah, I think it was Gomez. For me, I think he let him run off. And again, a fully fit João Gomez, that doesn't happen too. And, granted, he's come on the pitch to try and help see the game out a little bit because we were down to 10 and Bellegarde's just come back from a long-term injury. So I think he's come on as a needs must, and he was a half a step off it. And like I say, that's just how our season's gone. All in today's game, we're in the better side. We missed a penalty. We had a sending off. And then a guy that we coveted heavily in the summer goes and scores. And scores the winner against us. Just typical. Like I said, I'm sick of this season. I just want to get to May and just sort of let's just get in the championship and let's just start again. Because that's where I am with it.
If you needed one game that was a microcosm or something to sum up our season, it was probably today, wasn't it? It was frustrating. There was a few comments, a few people during the game taking digs at Rob Edwards in the second half, saying make changes. But I think when you're down to 10 men as well, and I said this on social media, I said it. I'm looking at the bench, I'm looking at the squad, I'm like, what changes can he make, really? There's nothing really. Like, when you're this is at 0-0 as well, you're in the game, and it's similar to the Grimsby game, like, there's certain situations, like, you got to think of set pieces. You kept Tyler one over Adam Armstrong, obviously, because of that set piece. He was winning those first balls every time. You've got half-fit players on the bench. Like, a few people moan that Totti didn't come on for Adam Armstrong, but you got Muller-Wolfer, who I actually thought did an okay job anyway when he came on, and it allows Hugo Bueno to push higher when you attack as well. So I think it was very, very harsh. And the thing, unfortunately, rightly or wrongly, people have got agendas. They're going to stick to these agendas. We draw against Arsenal on Wednesday, and everyone thinks, it's a really good result. We lose again today. Now the protests need to restart. Rob Edwards is the worst thing ever. So, this is football. This is wars. We're all reactionary. We all have our opinions on things as well. But again, this is just one of those days. And these margins that have just gone against us, me and you, Jord, could be easily talking about a 1-0 away win. Easily. And because of 1/2 daft errors, it's not the case. And ultimately, this is why these players are going to have a relegation on their CV this season, because ultimately they're making the wrong decisions at the wrong times. So we'll have to see. Thankfully, Jord, only one game between now and the next podcast, I think. Yeah, I mean, the fixtures are still coming thick and fast. There's a big one on Friday, Aston Villa at home. Do I dare jinx it and say I've got quite a decent record against Villa at Molineux? But they've still had a very solid season. Considering how poor they were right at the start of the campaign alongside us, they really kicked on, having a good season. This is going to be a tough game, I think, regardless of our form and our history at Molineux. I mean, I would love to see that continue, Jord. But Friday night under the lights against the Villa, it could be an interesting one.
Yeah, they're faltering a little bit. They're spluttering a little bit as well, aren't they? So they've got some injuries. They are a bit of a thin squad. And again, every Villa fan will tell you it's because of FFP. And I'd argue the fact of, well, everyone's got FFP, but you just spend money horrendously over the last couple of years. Yeah. That's the reason why you've got these FFP barriers and challenges. Look, it'll be, again, we have got, dare I say, a good record against Aston Villa at Molineux over the last few seasons. Can we get something out of the game? Possibly. Because, again, I think they've got injuries in the middle of the park. Again, how Bellegarde and Andre have played in the last two games, they could win that midfield battle. I don't think Ollie Watkins is on fire at the moment, but I think he's still got a fair bit about him. Morgan Rogers, standout player. I think he's top. I think he's a really good footballer. But yeah, you can get at them. I don't think they're not beatable. I don't think they're like a team that we couldn't cause some harm against. But yeah, like I say, it'll be a good atmosphere Friday night under lights. I'm not watching it because it's my wedding anniversary and we're out for food.
Quick, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 years. 2 years. So yeah, but yeah, so book the restaurant and
that's right. Yeah, that's only felt like a year. That's crazy.
Yeah. Time is going quick, mate. Yeah, yeah. So book the restaurant and stuff for 7:45, and then realise we're playing Aston Villa on the Friday night. But
didn't we play Villa? Didn't we play Villa during your wedding reception?
It was the wedding party. Yeah. Was it? Yeah, I don't know if we played them.
But it got moved.
Did you play them in the afternoon?
Yeah, we played them lunchtime kickoff, and your thing was in the evening. I think.
That was it. Yeah. I remember. Yeah, we got a bit of an affinity with this Wolves Villa home fixture over the years. So, but yeah, no. So I'm not watching it live. So I may or may not do the podcast because I may or may not want to rewatch it depending on results.
I think Wolves get something out of this, but I think it screams like a 1-1 draw or something like that. But I'd love it to just get something from this game. If Fos and Nathan Shee listening, get the liquidator on before this game. Let's get everyone hyped up for this match, and let's see what happens. But I mean, I gesture, but I talk about Nathan Shee because something that he mentioned during the week has caused, again, a lot of discussion, a lot of controversy this week in regards to ticket prices. So, obviously, the fan groups had the meeting with him. The trusts have had meetings with him. All of those parties have sort of put pressure in regards to season ticket prices. But the fan advisory board had their meeting this week, again, putting more pressure on in terms of ticket prices. Now, although publicly they've not confirmed what the prices are going to be, the club have said, or at least a few people have said to me, that they are more than likely going to be low. Well, they will be lower. At what rate, what percentage, we don't know yet. But there were some strange comments that Nathan Shee made, Jord, in regards to the long-term strategy and Wolves being a Premier League club, which confused and worried a lot of people, I think. I don't know what your take on that was.
Yeah, I think, firstly, in terms of ticket prices, I think it's, for me at least, again, as someone who has technically got a season ticket, for me, they will reduce the prices. I think they've been very sort of non-committal publicly, because if they say one thing and go back on it in terms of a percentile decrease or whatever they're going to say, that can then sort of, when they're saying that sort of in February, when that comes around to announce ticket prices, let's be honest, they're probably going to do it once relegation's confirmed. They might get held on things we said previously, right? I think the club massively need to do something to get fans back on board. That is match day tickets in terms of single tickets, that is season tickets, that is ambition on and off the football pitch, that is regeneration of Molineux. That there's so much, and again, I wasn't at that meeting. You were, shared things with me. We've had conversations about it since and before that as well. And I think the club know that they fucked it, to be honest with you. But whether they put it right or not, proof will be in the pudding come the summer onwards, right? That's really now, Nathan coming in, and let's be honest, the season was a write-off. Whether fans think that's wrong to say when he coming in January that it's a write-off, it's a write-off. So they need to put things right ASAP. For me, season tickets probably need to start with at least a 5. I'd argue a 4, at least a 5. Again, I mentioned on the podcast last week, I've got mates in the Billy Wright Upper Essential, and they're paying over 930 quid a season ticket, which is just, it's a disgrace, really, when you look at the pounds per points you get in and the value for money that you've got, not just this season, the last 3 seasons, where I think Foden took the foot off the gas. It's shocking. Now, I think the comments that Nathan's making, I think he's fair from it. Again, you got to take away sort of, as a football club and as a football fan, Foden are looking at this and Nathan's looking at this purely as a business thing, right? And his comments around sort of benchmarking against not just short term, I can't remember the exact quote, but basically saying we can't really benchmark against going down to the Championship one season because we're going to be back in the Premier League and we're going to be in the Premier League for many years to come after the back of that. As a fan, that's worrying to hear. I think it's very. I think it's borderline arrogant of a stance to have, really, in terms of against the football pyramid in English football. There's no guarantees you get promoted. There's no guarantees you should be in the top league. We've got promotions and relegations for a reason, and you earn it on the pitch. And I think that there's a belief within the football club, maybe a little bit naively, that they're just going to bully their way back to be in the Premier League side within 12 months. Could that happen? Yeah. Realistically, could it happen? I'd imagine we're going to be one of the bookies' favourites to do so. And I do believe we'll probably only have one season in the Championship and come back up, because I don't think the Championship's much cop at all these days, to be honest with you, because I think the gap is just getting wider and wider. But the comment, for me, is poor. in a way of, well, you'd argue they haven't acted like a Premier League club for the last 3 years on and off the pitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if that's what you're saying, why haven't you acted like that recently in recent history? Because you haven't. You've been very naive. You took the foot off the gas, and you've sort of just let us effectively get swallowed up, which happens to all these clubs that sort of just take their eye off the ball, and you end up going down. There's no guarantee on that.
Yeah.
I think what to back Nathan, or say back Nathan. I've never even met the guy, but sort of give him a bit of nuance to this conversation is he's looking at it from a business perspective of, well, it doesn't make sense for us to go from 900 to 400 to then put it back up to 700 in the next year, or even back up to 900, because that's just crazy in terms of, you can't really do that to consumers. So I think what he's probably looking at doing is saying, well, we're probably going to we will bring it, well, again, we don't know, but bring it down. And then they're probably looking at a model to then, if we go back in the Premier League and maintain our status, stagger it back to this level, which again, for me right now is it's just not, it's a massive overpay as it is right now. It's too high now. But I think that's how Foes are looking at it, or at least Nathan's looking at the numbers and saying, I can't reduce my prices by 50% and then put them back up by 50% the next year, because as a business model, that's just flawed. How can you budget for anything?
The statement that was on the FAB meeting notes was that Nathan acknowledged the strength of feeling and confirmed that no final decisions have been made. He stressed that pricing must be considered as part of a longer-term strategy rather than a single-season reaction, particularly if the club is targeting immediate return to the Premier League. He also noted that communication around any pricing structure must be handled carefully while the team is still competing this season. So the last sentence, I think, is key, because obviously these minutes came out, which firstly, the FAB meeting minutes were always hidden at the back end of the Wolves website. Unless you went digging for them or someone shared the link, you would never have seen these minutes come out. So firstly, this is down to the trust and the fan groups who said, like, these FAB meetings are like official meetings between the club and the fans. This is an official sort of fan board. These should be sort of front and center, because these are what, as fans, the questions that we would be asking. So firstly, that's a good thing that's on there. But secondly, what I was going to say is there has been a lot of pressure following these comments on Wolves to release the prices within the next week or so. We all know the likelihood is that Wolves' fate is going to be sealed soon and Wolves will be in the Championship next season. But what message, in my opinion, what message would it send out if Nathan Shee were to release the season ticket prices now because of a little bit of pressure for the Championship season, basically waving a white flag, saying, what message would that send to Rob and the team? What message would that send to the fans? Or what message would that send out to rival fans? That, Wolves have just given up. So he is a chairman of a business. He can't be seen to be given up yet anyway. Of course he can't. However, in terms of pricing, I appreciate they want an immediate return, but we've said it before. You've said it then, Jord. Bouncing back from the Championship is not easy. It's going to be a very, very difficult job, and they've got to get recruitment right in the summer. If they cock that up, there's a chance we get swallowed up in it, and we could be stuck in the Championship for years to come again. If you want to charge Premier League prices, fine, but prove you want to be a Premier League club. For me, next season they have to drop the prices to a reasonable level. I did a video over the weekend comparing it to different prices of different Championship clubs in and around the same sort of area as us, which it could be similar levels of. I think 500, around the 500-ish, 550 mark, I think people may still moan at that, but I think that's an acceptable drop-off in level. You get us back up to the Premier League and you have every right to push the prices up a little bit. And if you can prove to us that you're there at a consistent level and we're building and getting better as a Premier League club, then that's absolutely fine. I think everybody listening to this podcast won't complain about prices getting higher if the quality of football is getting better, the quality of player that we're looking at is getting better, and we're pushing for European football, we're being more competitive in the cups and so on. People ain't going to be bothered. But the fact that we're currently playing the same sort of margin as probably clubs that are in European football right now, clubs that are in the top 6, top 7 in the Premier League right now, that's unacceptable, considering where we are as a football club. So it's a huge decision, Jord, because I think if he gets this wrong, but ultimately his main job now is to try and, in my opinion, repair ties between the club, between the club and fans, try and get those connections back. This could be the worst thing he does if he gets these prices wrong.
Yeah, it's his first big decision, I would say, as a chairman of this football club, and he can't get it wrong. I think, again, I think the club are naive about this waiting list, and I think they're naive about fan loyalty, because I think a lot of fans are pissed off now to the point of you don't give a shit about us, so we're not going to. Well, we're going to spend our hard-earned money to go and watch them every week. And like I say, I've made a decision for a long time now within the season to not. I've actively said I've not been going. I still watch them on the TV, home and away. I love my football club, but I can't put money into this ownership model as it is right now. I think that if the pricing is wrong, protests or cries for protests will be even vehemently stronger. Again, I've said, and we spoke about, I don't think the protest should have ever stopped, to be honest with you, really. But I understand why that's happened, and I get that. But in terms of a wider fan base, fans are still hurting, fans are still discouraged by Fosen. And again, we've had some, you've had good meeting with them, and there's been good sound bites coming out of the club. But until that's proven, it's only it's not worth anything really at the moment. But again, they've really got to get it right this summer. I genuinely think, like, again, there needs to be some sort of loyalty for existing season ticket holders. I think they really need to look at it, because I genuinely think, like, they think there's this massive waiting list of Wolves fans from here, from local areas and abroad and overseas, that will come and watch Wolves through thick and thin and love the football club and will pay whatever money it is just because I want to watch the football team. I'm telling you now, like, I've been watching them in the Championship, League One, like, but the hardcore fans will turn up. The people that will turn up in and out, but you ain't getting these like fucking streamers from America coming to watch us play Oxford next season, are you? And do a stream. Like, it's just stuff like that. I think they've got to get it right. And again, you are right what you're saying. You can't bully yourself out of the Championship. If you look at the league table right now, the three that went down, Leicester are in the relegation zone, but admittedly to sort of financial difficulties and that sort of pressure. Southampton aren't anywhere near the playoffs, and Ipswich aren't in the top two either. And again, I would say we're probably better prepared to have a bit of an onslaught in comparison to those teams, but it's hard. There's no guarantee you're just going to bully your way out of the league. And as well, like, if you're taking like the core of this squad, I don't think we've got many players that would stick out in the Championship, even in this squad we've got right now. That's without letting anyone go.
Yeah, you want a full stadium as well. There's no point in them putting, giving us like a token discount and then like a decent percentage don't renew. You start losing a few games. You got like 22, 23,000 on the first game of the season. You want it at a respectable price. Everyone's like, yeah, fucking come on then. We're up for this then. Let's back this team now. The new chairman sort of helped us out a little bit. Let's say. Let's get back on board with it. And you fill out Molineux. You start off with the season well. It's all about momentum sometimes in football. You start off the season well. You get yourself in a good position and Wolves can just carry it on from there. I loved that. I was trying to figure out like sort of gimmicks that they could do. So like I saw somebody, forgive me if they're listening, someone said £18.77 a game. Maybe behind the goal. I don't know how they'd work that out because obviously in the Steve Bull and the BOA it would have to be more. But like for the 23 home games, that'd be 430 quid, which I think is a little bit too keen. I was trying to think of one of the 150 year anniversary, maybe like £15 a game, or as a joke, 150 quid season ticket. I don't know. But I agree with you. I think it's probably going to be in and around that sort of behind the goal. Let's say like you need to be taking like 200 quid off the thing. I think I paid 730 quid in the South Bank this year. Around,
I think it
needs to be like 525-ish tops. I think.
Yeah, I think when again I have to be careful what I'm saying here because I've still technically got it, but I was paying about 460, 470.
When when we came up. Oh, in the Championship? Or
Yeah.
Yeah, so I looked at those. So when would it have been? The year we went up was that 17-18, yeah, I think. Was it 18?
Yeah,
Yeah, 17-18.
17-18.
Yeah, so the season ticket prices
I
that
was I
year.
was in the I was in the Steve Bull upper then.
Yeah, let me try and find the 17-18 prices. Oh no, I've just got all the Premier League. I've just got all the Premier
What
League
was it in the
ones.
Premier League though? Because I was still in the Steve Bull in 18,
The first year we went up to the Premier League was behind the goal was 449. That was the first year back in the Premier League. Steve Bull upper would have been 474.
That's what I said, 470. Yeah, that's what I was paying.
Yeah. The year later,
When you compare that now, it's like what 7? Now you're saying it's 730 behind the goal.
Sure, yeah, I'm sure it's like that. Yeah.
So I mean, it's just ridiculous in terms of even if you're benchmarking against inflation, like it should be nowhere near those sort of
735 behind the goal.
Yeah, it should that inflate. That's what I mean. They're just counting on loyalty and greed, and again, the reality is, and again, the model works when you're a Premier League side. Maybe not with Wolves, but they don't want season ticket holders. They want to be able to sell individuals. They want to be able to sell individual seats because they can sell individual seats to anyone around the world, pay and put whatever price they want on it, and sell tickets. Now we know, like from last season, or conversation I had about last season with someone from the club, 97% of 97. This is true. 97% of people going to the museum were from South Korea or Asian origin. And they were coming on packages which got them a free shirt, free museum visit, tour of Molineux, and then a Wolves shirt with Wang Yi-chan on his shirt on the back.
Yeah.
But that's because they could sell single tickets as part of this premium experience and charge what they want for it. I know Man City are doing it at the moment as well, where I know that it's rearing its ugly head there with some of their fans. They're reselling tickets of season ticket holders in, I think, the North stand, and they're trying to sell them as like experiences at like 180 quid a ticket. Man United are doing it as well. They're like getting rid of season ticket holders in certain areas and building VIP experiences. Chelsea have done it. That's the model that Wolves were trying to do, and I think Wolves are still trying to employ. But if you think that's going to work in the Championship, like again,
until we're competing in Europe, we shouldn't even be fucking thinking about it.
We shouldn't be doing it, but we shouldn't be doing it. But that's where they've got it from. This benchmarking is looking at other teams doing it, but it's basically benchmarking a Porsche against a fucking banged up like Reliant Robin that Del Boy used to drive. That's what it's been like this season. 3 wheels, fucking. It's been shit. Like we were comparing and competing with, but I just think the club again. There are, whether people like to believe this or not, there are some smart people at that football club within there. Like I think. They know they can't take the piss for pricing in the Championship because the last thing you want is it being midweek in November. Wolves have got Lincoln City at home. It look like they're coming up. There'll be like 16,000 in there if the pricing's not right.
Yeah,
that's just the harsh reality of it.
Yeah, well, probably say that's all time we've got time for, Jord. But it'd be very interesting to see this time next week if there's any extra news on that. I'm not sure if there is. I know a few people were sort of kicking off a little bit. Over the weekend and back into last week about that. So we'll see if there is any sort of reaction. But as always, mate, thanks for jumping on. Where can people find you if they wish?
At Jord7 on Twitter and Instagram.
Perfect. I'm at Dave as a party everywhere. We're at Talking Wolves everywhere as well. If you want to keep up to date with the latest Wolves news, feel free to drop us a follow. If you're listening or watching this podcast on YouTube, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, as always, please do leave us a review. But enjoy the rest of your week, guys. We'll be back over the weekend, next weekend, hopefully to discuss a positive result against the Villa. But until then, look after yourselves. I will see you all very, very soon.